And the government, under Simon Harris, are now launching a fairly serious attack on workers' rights. We had over the weekend further reports that the government now plan to postpone and renege. Well, the government plan to renege on their commitment to increase sick leave to 7 days from the 5 days at the beginning of next year, and also to pause the move to the living wage. And really, this is outrageous. We have a very, very high proportion of workers in this country who have to exist on low pay, and with the extortionate cost of rents, accommodation, the cost of living crisis, it is absolutely disgraceful that the government are moving to renege on commitments to move to a living wage and to increase the sick leave entitlements of workers. And indeed, it would seem to me that, the government are very, very keen to push immigration up the agenda and to focus people's attention on vulnerable migrants, while meantime they attack workers' rights and renege on commitments to pay low-paid workers a living wage and improve the sick pay entitlements of workers. So we're going to be highlighting that very strongly. A lot of this is being justified on the basis of small business struggling, but the truth is the beneficiaries of this corporate welfare by the government, of a big extra package to business and delays on the improvements in pay and sick leave entitlements for workers, are going to benefit big business that is recording record profits, where we've seen corporate profits in this country go through the roof in recent years, and yet the government isn't even willing to keep its commitments to move workers to a living wage and improve their sick pay, their sick leave entitlements. We also will be highlighting today really our disgust at the decision of the County Corla not to accede to our request to fly the Palestinian flag here in Leinster House tomorrow on Nakba Day, the anniversary of the massive, brutal, murderous ethnic cleansing of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in 1948. We had asked that that anniversary would be commemorated by flying the Palestinian flag for just one day against the background of a genocidal assault that is being launched by Israel and has been inflicted on the Palestinian people over the last 7 months by Israel. And that request has been refused, and it's really just hard to understand the double standards that see the Ukrainian flag flying for, I think, 2 years here, Leinster House draped in the colours of Ukraine because of what is undoubtedly the brutal invasion of Ukraine by Putin, but we can't even get agreement to fly the Palestinian flag for one day on the anniversary of a horrific catastrophe for the Palestinian people in 1948, and against the background of a genocidal assault being waged by Israel against the Palestinian people. Lastly, I just want to also refer to the ongoing refusal of the government to accede to a request we made at the Business Committee weeks and weeks ago for there to be statements and a progress report by Minister Darragh O'Brien on housing for all. Because again, while other issues are dominating the headlines, the situation in terms of homelessness and the housing crisis continues to get worse on a daily basis. I just want to alert you to the fact that in my office alone, we have 7 new cases of people facing eviction in the next few weeks. No-fault evictions, families facing the prospect of homelessness because the government lifted the no-fault eviction ban and have failed to put in measures to prevent families being driven into homelessness. This issue has dropped right down the agenda, and I don't believe it's any coincidence that the government don't want to discuss the homelessness figures, because at the root of a lot of the issues that are angering people in this country is actually the government's failure to deal with the housing and accommodation crisis, whether it affects homeless families in emergency accommodation or whether it affects asylum applicants living in tents. That is the root problem and failure of this government to address that housing and accommodation crisis, because they're more interested in the profits of property developers than in actually putting a roof over people's heads, and yet they don't want to and have still refused a request which actually they agreed in principle weeks ago to have a discussion on this in the Dáil, but it's still they refuse to put it on the order paper for discussion in the Dáil. So we will be pressing again for that discussion to happen and for Darragh O'Brien to actually report on the details of what's happening with a daily worsening housing and homelessness emergency in this country.
So I too want to make some points on the issue of workers' rights. I want to make some specific points about a new development with the saga of the Debenhams workers, or ex-Debenhams workers. But before I do, just to say, I think our message to the government is hands off the minimum wage, hands off workers' sick leave entitlements. If the government want to bring forward a package of supports on small business, we will look at what the proposals are, but we are utterly opposed to attacks on workers' rights in the name of protecting the interests of small business. In my view, Fine Gael has always been an anti-worker party, but they have gone to some considerable lengths in recent years in order to project an image of being a worker-friendly party. And if they proceed with attacks on the minimum wage and attacks on workers' sick leave entitlements, any attempt to project such an image will be in smithereens. And it will be in smithereens in the run-up to local and European elections and in the run-up to a general election as well. And we will be making a big issue of this. Just on the issue of Debenhams, I think most people would think, yeah, that was during COVID, it's done and dusted now. But actually, behind the scenes, the issues have continued. The shop steward in the Henry Street store, Jane Crowe, took a case to the Workplace Relations Commission and was awarded 4 weeks' pay, which in her case would be €1,800. It's way, way below what those workers should be entitled to, but it was seen as something. That was appealed and it was cut from 4 weeks down to 2 weeks, and the workers were dissatisfied with that cut but said, OK, this looks like the end of the road. But it turns out now that it's not, because the liquidators, KPMG, apparently are making plans to appeal that ruling to the High Court. Yesterday the workers received correspondence from their trade union mandate to the effect that the union's legal advisors have been advised that KPMG are going to take such a case. And the implications of that are, one, it's a threat to their 2 weeks. Two, it'll cost the union a lot of money. And three, kicks the can down the road. This struggle began more than 4 years ago. And a High Court appeal, I mean, they take different lengths of time, but has the potential to drag things out for another year. I think it's a disgrace that workers, women workers who've had to go through the struggle, who've been treated so poorly as they have, both by government and former employers, might have to wait an extra year to get their payment. And our message to KPMG is back off. You should not be taking this case. Do not take this case. Let the women have access now, without further delay, to the monies to which, as far as we're concerned, they're entitled. Okay?
Sorry.
Tell us more just about the Palestinian flag. When you said you were putting this recommendation, who was saying no? Was it the business committee, or where did it lie?
Yeah, well, we wrote to the Ceann Comhairle, and we've got the letter, you can see it yourself, in his response. And he is essentially saying he doesn't think it would be helpful or appropriate to fly the Palestinian flag, despite our request that he would do that. Now, it just, to me, beggars belief that a request for the Palestinian flag to fly one day on an anniversary of a catastrophe of mass ethnic cleansing perpetrated against the Palestinian people in 1948, and against the background of what the ICJ believe is a plausible genocide being committed by Israel against Gaza, that we can't show some solidarity here in Leinster House with the Palestinian people when we have for the last more than 2 years with the Ukrainian people. I just can't understand the double standards. And, you know, what does it say about the solidarity of the government or the establishment in here, that when the Palestinian people are suffering what to me is self-evidently a genocidal massacre, that we can't show some level of solidarity in the same way as solidarity was shown with the people of Ukraine when they were made victims of a brutal invasion.